Which Kia is better? We're showcasing the new 2025 Kia K4 EX in current red over medium gray versus the Kia Soul GT line inferior red over black. Both Kias, you can option up to 7 different colors on the exterior. But when you go into the GT line for the Soul, you can only option 1 color. The same power option, except when you go into the K4, you can option a turbo. I'm Anthony from Hawkeye Rides. I'm gonna go over the pros and cons. I'm gonna compare this to the competition to see which one is better ultimately from competition and these two trims. So we're gonna start off with the K4. The redesign to the Forte is here. It's gonna have that European fastback design with LED reflector headlights with auto on and off, amber LED daytime runnings, and going to the GT line turbo, you'll have cubed LED lighting for the front. The Tiger Nose grille has been reworked, so it's going to have the glossy black and the satin aluminum. Going into the LX or the LXS is going to have matte black and silver, and the GT line will have their own design element to make it look more sporty. Plus, it will change out the suspension, which the Soul doesn't do that at all. It's just a styling update. You're gonna get a multi-link rear suspension going for the K4 in the GT lines. McPherson strut front suspension is going to be on all trims, which takes me to a con that I have for the Soul. We're at the GT line, and we're not getting the multi-link rear. It's gonna have the same Torsum beam rear suspension as this. Now, for driving purposes, it can be smoother, but for performance, you wanna take some corners, it's not going to be as agile. The Soul, you can option LED headlights, daytime runnings, fog lights, glossy black, satin aluminum, enlarged grille. So I think it looks a little bit more performance. You'll also have more clearance here. It's at 6.7 inches, but housed underneath the hood is the same 2-liter 4-cylinder that produces 147 horsepower and 132 pound-feet of torque. Both are paired to the same IVT, intelligent variable transmission, basically a CVT transmission, but MPGs changes. You're gonna get 27 MPGs for the city on the Soul with 33 MPGs for the highway. The K4, 29 MPGs for the city, 39 MPGs for the highway, but then it's a car to a SUV. The major difference really is you're gonna be paying about $200-ish more going to the new K4, but then you're dropping in performance compared to the Forte that this replaced, because the Forte GT versus the GT line turbo K4, horsepower, you're losing 11. You had 201 horsepower last year, now you got 190. Both are gonna have 195 pound-feet of torque. 17-inch wheels, that's gonna be on the EX. 18-inch wheels is only going to be on the GT lines, with matte black on the lower skirt and around the fenders, flush door handles, so it really emphasizes on that sport back design, and the cube design comes into the rear window. The Soul carries the tradition of the GT line, giving us 18-inch wheels. Standard is 16-inch wheels, and up to a 17-inch wheel. Side view mirrors get the integrated LED turn signals. They're heated with blind spot monitoring, and you get a moonroof going this route. Plus, it's already cubed. I actually like the design to the Soul a little bit better than the EX variant for the K4, but if you go into the GT line, you're gonna have the same coloring on the exterior. The problem that I have with both of them is they're the least in class with horsepower and torque. They have no hybrid variant, no plug-in hybrid, and this is a smaller SUV. Kind of would like to see that. Plus, you don't even get standard LED headlights, daytime running lights when you're going into the Soul, and you're at the same price more or less as the K4. The Soul rear lighting integrates into the gloss black, and it surrounds the rear window. The lower pushes out, getting the satin aluminum, and dual exhaust finishers in the center. I mean, Mini doesn't even do this with their new modern design. You have to go to a JCW, which would be a huge difference in price compared to this. Obviously, performance would be as well, but you wouldn't really be competing against that with this. The K4, LED taillights is standard. Matte black on the lower, satin aluminum finishes it off, and no exhaust tips to be exposed, but this is not the GT line or GT line turbo. This is also not in a hatchback form for 2025. It should be for 26. That's what Kia is telling us, which will change the ball game to the K4, because then more cargo capacity, whereas when you go into the Soul, it's an SUV. So you're going to tick the box for storage capacity. You have the styling. It's the same engine, plus around $200 difference in price. Which one would you choose? For me, I would go Soul. But if I was going to the GT line or turbo, I would go up into the K4. Quick release on the K4 going into 14.6 cubic feet of storage. Underneath the floor gets a spare tire and a split folded rear bench. You pull these tabs here, that's going to fold down the seats at a 40-60 split, which will maximize the cargo capacity. Whereas the Soul gets 18.7 cubic feet of storage. It does sit up a little bit higher. You also have this area here that can be closed, so a nice little net. It's also deeper here with bag holders underneath the floor. Gets a spare tire. Split fold the rear bench in the back at a 60-40 split, maxing cargo to 62.1 cubic feet of storage. The key fob to the K4. Manual seat adjustments. The GT line will get power seat adjustments as well as the leatherette and cloth mixture. The GT line turbo will just have a full leatherette, heated front seat. The GT line turbo and non-turbo can option ventilated seats. This is premium cloth seats, and cloth seats is standard. Around 30 inches of digital screen is what you're getting with a more flat dashboard. Let's fire it up. The key fob for the Kia Soul. But the twist, when you get into the GT line, you can option power front seats, heated front seats. This is a leatherette seat. You get the Soul contrast stitch, manual seat adjustments, cloth seats is standard. But here's where you're gonna see the big difference in the interior because these screens are also smaller. Let's fire it up. We have a 10.25 touchscreen going into the GT line for the Soul. Navigation, you can expand this out. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Sirius XM, AM, FM, streaming Bluetooth audio. Put it into reverse. You get a reverse camera with trajectory. Click onto this sub menu and you can change the layout for the tow, and you can change this to expand it out. But unfortunately it doesn't cover up the whole screen. You still have physical buttons, dual climate control settings, wireless charging pad up top. The lower is going to have a little storage, USB ports, 12 volt. So it's similar to the Forte that the K4 replaced. Whereas the K4 is going to have wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Sirius XM, AM, FM, streaming Bluetooth audio. You'll still have the physical buttons, but they clean up the whole dashboard. The EX also adds this 5-inch touchscreen for the dual climate control settings and physical buttons right here, even though it's somewhat of a driver-focused setup. You'll still have kind of the same cluster here, but yet again cleaned up. Wireless charging pad is standard, USB ports, 12 volt, leatherette around the shifter, with a large storage box or push these buttons for cup holders. This is push back, similar to the Forte, the way it was. Opens up about the same size storage, and we're gonna put it into reverse so you can see the reverse camera. Click onto the sub menu. You have the same tow lineup, except this will expand out to the whole screen, integrating into a 12.3 digital reader that can also go through an array of different content for the driver. But unfortunately, you have to go into this screen here, hit setup, or the physical button setup. So again, is it kind of overkill? I mean, let me know your thoughts. I like buttons, but we have two different ways to, I guess it works. Screen layout, click over here, and now you can change the gauge layout to make it as sport derived as you like. You could have it circled, you could have it simplified, leatherette steering wheel, multi-function. It's a flat bottom, but it's a 2-spoke. And the flat bottom carries on into the GT line for the Soul. You'll have the cross stitch multi-function. Gloss black is going to surround it with a digital reader that can go through an array of different content for the driver, and it also will be the same way you click onto the setup. So either way, you go K4 or you go Soul, you're gonna have two buttons either here or there. Both are more or less driver focused with standard 4 speakers. 6 speakers come into play here with an option for Harman Kardon as well as LED interior lights and ambient lighting. Driving mode select, you have a total of 2 driving modes, which carries on into the K4, except it's on the steering wheel. Leg space is more than enough. The same thing with headroom. They do a good job with the K4. Door panel and dash configuring together nicely. You'll have the same seat material here. It's a little bit more soft, but it's still kind of firm. One touch up and down for the front windows, starting on this trim with a long storage pocket. And the sole, leg space, more than enough. Headroom, it's even better with a moonroof. Door panel and dash configuring together nicely, but just a little bit more sporty. One touch up and down for the driver window only, and this is going to be just as firm as that area. You kind of have a storage here, but it is open, so just be careful if you put your smartphone in about the same size storage pocket. Flush door handles, so it keeps that sport back design to fit 3 more in the back. That's the opening that you have. You'll have storage behind the passenger seat. 2 USB ports, that's standard on all trims with a storage tray. Air vents to be in the back. GT line turbos, the only way you could do that. Door panel's gonna have the same segment in the front. So you kind of have a storage area here because you do lack in storage there. Going into the back for legroom, this is the best in class, and you could see why this is in the position I would be sitting. Headroom, it's actually pretty good the way it sits out. Sliding into the center, check it out. Knee space, more than enough. Butt, leg, and shoulder space, no compromise. But headroom now becomes a problem at 6'3". You do have, so it does make it a little bit easier to get out of the vehicle. As for the sole, that's the opening that you have, and we do have cup holders and armrests, so you can fit 2 or 3 with this folded up. USB ports, you'll have the same. Storage only behind the passenger seat. The door is going to have the same segment in the front, and you could fit something here. Same thing, you're gonna have an issue with storage in the back because the door is a little bit smaller. Leg space for the sole is gonna be a little bit more tight. Headroom is actually a lot better. Sliding into the center, it's more or less a flat floor, it just kind of lifts up a little bit. So you'll share some feet space, butt, leg, and shoulder space. It's not that wide of a vehicle, but they do a good job carving out storage and room, especially for sitting into the center, because this is actually better than the K4. K4 turn radius to start us off with is about 2 lanes. Let's rock and roll. All right, guys, it's a 2-liter 4-cylinder. It's not a hybrid, it's not a turbocharged, it's not a PHEV. It is 147 horsepower with 132 pound-feet of torque. The same engine that's in the Kia Soul that we are comparing it against. The difference, though, is we are low to the ground because this is a compact car. It's not a smaller SUV. You will be losing some cargo capacity. But the screen interface to this is awesome. I mean, you're getting around 30 inches of digital screens, 2 touch pads, and you still have physical buttons. They take care of the new generation for technology, and they take care of everybody else with buttons. Sound deadening is good. 17-inch wheels. I like the wheel choice for this because it's a smaller vehicle. There's really no need to go much more than an 18-inch wheel, which is spot on for the GT line and GT line turbo. And for people in the comments that typically say I want a smaller wheel because the ride needs to be more soft, that's why Kia did this. I mean, you can get a 16-inch wheel, torsion rear suspension. That's why it's quiet. Maneuverability, it's not a problem either. Steering is more or less light. But if you are looking at numbers and specs, Honda and Toyota is going to be better than both the K4 and the Soul. And the Soul doesn't have any option to get more performance, which is a huge problem for me because with these smaller SUVs, everyone's wanting to see at least a hybrid. But which is better out of these 2 Kias? I like a compact car, I think they're awesome, but I prefer the Forte not only because of performance numbers, but just the way it felt in the interior. Here, I feel like we lose a little bit of space in the front. We do gain a ton of space in the back, so I appreciate that. But for my family, I would have to go into an SUV because I have tall people. And it only makes sense with more storage capacity. This is going to be a lot more quiet though. I like the fastback design because it does change the ball game for the Forte, giving that futuristic look and still keeping some of the performance alive and giving more interior space. But I like how an SUV opens up a little bit more space and just more usable overall. And you'll still have that sporty style because we're not taking the box to the turbo variants. Turn radius to start off with the Kia Soul GT line is about 2 lanes. Let's rock and roll. Don't go too crazy. It is a Kia, and these are everyday vehicles. We are really thinking now which is going to be better, because this is around the 25 grand price battle. Same horsepower, same torque, same suspension layout, more clearance. This is an SUV, more cargo capacity is to drive better. I like it a little bit better, but then the road noise filters in a lot more so than my liking. I think at this price, Kia does need to up their game just a touch, because Honda is going to be better there. The seat cushion isn't bad. I wish it had a little bit more in it because it is an SUV, but it's still a comfortable ride. So overall, I think you will be pleased with that. It's going to take me to some pros and cons. The pros, obviously, I like the styling to the vehicle. I like SUVs because it's easier to get in and out of. You have a little bit more space here, and you're at the same pricing as the K4. But then on the cons, you got smaller screens. You don't have that 30-inch digital screen, more or less, for the front. It kind of has more of the Forte vibe, where it has the stacked area for storage, meaning your wireless charging pad. But then I also like that you kind of have a pretty decent amount of storage, even though you don't have a full pass-through. Door storage lacks in both vehicles. Honda is going to be a little bit better there, and Toyota is going to be a little bit smaller, kind of in between the two. And because it's a compact car compared to an SUV, you're going to naturally have more space in the interior of the vehicle. But at this price, I like that we get a moonroof. I like that they give you an option so you can have full LEDs for the exterior. You can have power seat adjustment, heated front seats, the Harman Kardon upgraded sound system. These are things that you can't get on the EX. You have to go into the GT line in order to unlock things like that. Plus, you get these 18-inch wheels. You have the styling that makes it look a little bit more aggressive. Visibility is going to be a little bit better. And the Soul just feels a little bit more playful instead of more towards that modern European design. But that leads me back to the question, which is better? I would go SUV unless I'm going to get the GT line turbo in the K4, because then I'm unlocking the performance, where here you're just getting a style update. But let me know which way you would go. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Check out the membership, live streams, website, and Instagram. Leave a comment and a like. And I'd like to thank Regal Kia for giving us these two 2025 Kias, the K4 versus the Soul, for our car comparison review.